Welcome to Pragmatism in Practice, a podcast from Thoughtworks where we share stories of practical approaches to becoming a modern digital business. I'm your host, Karen Dunville, and I'm here today with Kathleen Walker, Sustainability Advisor in our Digital Transformation and Operations team, and Andy Nolan, Director of Emerging Technology at Thoughtworks Australia, who some of you may recognise as a previous guest on our episode about innovation. Today we're here to speak about a slightly different topic, how to achieve your sustainability goals through technology. Welcome, Kathleen, and welcome back, Andy. So let's kick off. In your experience, what are some common challenges that organisations face when trying to execute sustainability goals? And how can technology help address these challenges?
Thanks, Karen. Happily, we are seeing global confirmation that sustainability is now a mainstream commercial and social concern. And we're using the term sustainability here to refer to the broad spectrum of environmental, social, and governance considerations that an organisation might deem to be material or relevant to their own impact. The example here is an organisation that's primarily digital will assess the sustainability impacts of their organisation and are likely to determine that things like cybersecurity or the protection of customer data are really high as a material issue for their sustainability performance, compared to an organisation with a much stronger or larger environmental footprint, like a retailer or a manufacturer, who are much more likely to rank something like the mitigation of downstream impacts like waste or packaging as very high material matter to their organisation. So when we're talking about organisational sustainability here, we really are talking about a very large potential area of issues that an organisation might be concerned with, but each organisation will do the work to determine a much smaller scope for that organisation to then use the term sustainability to refer to their opportunity and their challenges in this space. Gone are the days when organisations really are asking the question, should we be engaging in our sustainability performance? They're now asking themselves how and how quickly can we engage with the impact that our operations and our business and our people have on social and environmental concerns. This is due in part because we're seeing a global swell in legislation and regulation around organisations in this space. This is particularly true of climate issues, but it is absolutely the case across the sustainability domain that organisations are being held accountable and will be required to track and report on their performance on a number of issues. And this is great news. It's great news for the planet. It's great news for people. It's great news for profits because we know organisations that can really harness the potential of this new mindset and opportunities around sustainability will realise value in new ways. So it's all great news. And alongside this, we have seen a proliferation of organisations publicly committing to their sustainability targets and their sustainability strategies. And these targets are often very large, long-term aspirational goals, which is really, really important. However, there is a catch, we're seeing a challenge, and that is that these organisations are rarely at the moment set up to meet those sustainability aspirations. We're referring to this as the sustainability execution gap. In the main, organisations are not at the moment understanding how to establish the kinds of cross-organisational transformative programs of change that are required to meet those targets. And this is a big risk for these organisations. As the pressure from external and internal stakeholders increases, as the deadline for some of these targets draws ever nearer, these organisations are now really asking the question, how can we move the dial and accelerate our ability to meet these sustainability targets? How do we track and make our performance in these areas visible? How do we engage and empower people across our organisation to meet those goals? And how do we ensure that we are sending the right messages externally, particularly around our performance? And that's where technology is going to be really important.
Thank you. That was a really great snapshot of the landscape and some of the challenges. A second question I had, and you just mentioned it there, was technology being able to help. So, Andy, can you give us a bit of a sense for, at a high level, how technology can help address some of these challenges?
Yes, thanks, Karen. So there's a critical role technology can play in helping organizations break down the complexity of achieving or making meaningful progress on these targets that they have set. Embedding sustainability into the way organizations operate and make decisions is a key contributor to them actually making meaningful progress. And technology can play a key role in actually providing the data that supports this decision-making process. And it will also play a key role in helping them assign accountability to different parts of the organizations. So if we're setting up things like KPIs to help incentivize leaders to think about sustainability in the material matters of their organizations, data will be a key component in that. So we're seeing organizations start to think about how data platforms and the tech function can start to collect this information and surface it in meaningful ways to make that decision-making process a little bit easier. So sustainability shouldn't be an afterthought within these organizations. It should be part of the daily routine. And we're starting to see the skills that organizations typically have in the tech function to measure things around customer engagement and other metrics being leveraged for sustainability, data collection and management.
Now, you've both mentioned that word accountability, and of course, we need accountability in everything we do. Kathleen, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the importance of assigning accountability for our sustainability outcomes, and how can organisations ensure clear ownership and responsibility across the teams that are working on sustainability?
Thanks, Karen. This goes to the heart of a really critical issue here when we're thinking about challenges for sustainability execution. And we can learn a lot from tech-led thinking and technology when we think about how to advance and meet this challenge. And key is empowerment, and the empowerment of teams across an organisation to take part of an organisation's sustainability strategy or challenge, make it their own, measure their performance, and then track and report on that. What we're seeing in organisations generally at the moment is that organisations have small, dedicated but small organisational corporate sustainability teams who have a very large role. They have a very big job at the moment, which is to deliver on these large organisational sustainability strategies. And they do struggle in the main to have the kind of influence they need in order to achieve those outcomes. The opportunity here is not to simply build bigger sustainability teams, although there's absolutely a case for that, particularly as we think about what kinds of skills are going to be needed in these teams to deliver on sustainability. But that's another podcast. This question really is around how do we ensure that organisations can make the most of the tech-led thinking and the technology capability they have today. And really this is about ensuring that organisations can break down complex goals into smaller pieces of work that can then be allocated to various parts of a business or an organisation so that they can own and have accountability for the outcomes of that piece of the puzzle, leaving the sustainability team with the critical and very significant role of ensuring that those pieces of work all do marry up and do line up to achieve the value that the sustainability strategy is seeking. And that's what's really exciting, I think, about the role of technology and tech thinking here, is we know that technology and technologists and tech functions do a great job of breaking down large pieces of work, huge aspirational goals around outcomes for customer, around outcomes for business. This is very similar. This is exactly the kind of thinking that we need organisations to apply to their sustainability strategy, particularly as Andy has mentioned around the role of measuring and ensuring that each of those pieces of the puzzle are clearly defined, are measurable, are tracked and reported back, to allow these organisations to have the autonomy that they need in order to achieve that part of the sustainability strategy.
Thanks, that makes a lot of sense. And you touch on that point around measurement, and Andy did refer earlier to data being so important to being able to measure results in sustainability efforts. So Andy, maybe you can talk a little bit about how organisations begin to implement continuous monitoring and make those data-driven decisions in their measurement.
Yeah, it's a really key point. So when we talk to organizations at the moment, many of them are collecting this data manually. So there might be information on invoices from certain suppliers. There might be spreadsheets being used across the organization to pull this all together. And because it's a manual process, it's often really costly, it's time consuming, and it's not something they do frequently. This is one of the key areas that organizations struggle with when they're trying to make progress is in order to have enough information that's timely and it's relevant, we need to automate as much as possible. So sustainability teams, like Kath mentioned, they're very small at the moment, and they just don't have the time to do this continuously. Where technologists can come in is to help them automate as much as possible to make sure that we're surfacing information to help other stakeholders within the organization make those decisions. So moving from a really low-tech approach, spreadsheets, Excel, manual data collation, formulas and things like that, and applying the skills that we have in other parts of the organization to automate as much as possible is one of the key areas where we see tech leaders and tech teams playing a role. And one of the factors that we often see is there's a lack of communication between those two teams. So sustainability teams have a tech needs that aren't being addressed, and technologists aren't aware, or the tech teams aren't focused on or incentivized to make sure that their pain points are addressed. So starting that conversation is one of the first steps, including technology in sustainability conversations, whether that's on an ESG committee inside an organization, is a really great way to make sure that when technologists and tech leaders are thinking about developing platforms, they have sustainability as one of those key metrics they're trying to solve for as well.
And just digging a little further into that topic around technology specifically, as with a lot of things, the intersection of sustainability and technology can be complex. So in your opinion, what are the key considerations when choosing and implementing tech solutions for sustainable practices? Kathleen, I might ask you.
It's a great question because the world of technology solutions for the sustainability leader and the sustainability team really is a double-edged sword. And this is because there is a growing awareness, as we've talked about already today, that the role of technology and tech solutions is critical for the delivery and execution of sustainability strategy. And nobody knows that more than the sustainability team. However, in amongst the growing and swelling market for technology tools and solutions to help organisations meet their sustainability challenge, there is a lot of confusion and uncertainty. As the opportunities and the tools and solutions continue to grow in number, often these tools are focused on specific elements of a sustainability strategy or a sustainability value chain. And it's unclear for many organisations how to best select a tool or build a technology solution internally that will really drive the return on investment that these organisations need. And for the sustainability leader, this is particularly challenging, as it is often difficult for a sustainability leader to have the kind of detail that he or she needs to have about the organisation's existing technology strategy or stack in order to be able to have meaningful conversations with third parties or even others who wish to bring in technology into the organisation to help with the sustainability strategy. And what's happening here is that organisations really are risking over-investing in technology and doing that without knowing how existing tech or tech solutions might help solve some of the sustainability challenge, or bringing in large expensive tools for whom the value is not easily recognised, for whom the users is quite a small group, and it's not an easy ask to expect a sustainability leader to stand in front of his or her capital funding allocation committee and say, I'm very certain that bringing in this tool today, spending this kind of money on this solution is the right decision for my organisation. And we're finding that organisations and sustainability leaders are in a bit of a difficult position where it is hard for that organisation and for that leader to confidently determine the way forward regarding technology solutions.
And I think the proliferation of tools, sustainability tools inside the organizations does present a challenge for tech leaders. So we have this real risk of shadow IT where different parts of the organization, whether it's procurement, finance, or risk, are looking to purchase tools that solve a particular subset of needs inside the sustainability space. But they're doing so without taking into consideration the broader tech strategy of the organization. And these tools will eventually require tech support in the future and will become partly supported by the tech function themselves. So trying to bring those two worlds together as quickly as possible is a great way to make sure that the tools we're purchasing can be leveraged inside the broader ecosystem or the broader tech stack inside an organization, and that we can actually extract the data from them and integrate them into our existing data platforms to make it a lot easier to embed this sort of information into the regular decision-making processes using the standard dashboards and all of these other systems that we already have inside organizations. And we're not duplicating effort inside different siloed tools.
So it sounds like there's a lot for some of these business leaders to take on, and there's a lot of tech capability and confidence required that's emerging for sustainability leaders. What are some strategies that companies can deploy for upskilling and empowering sustainability leaders and teams to effectively leverage the technology that they have for sustainability initiatives? Kathleen.
Thanks, Karen. So this is an area of focus across the sustainability domain at the moment, and I referenced it earlier that there's a real challenge in ensuring that our sustainability leaders today and into the future have the breadth of capability and knowledge they need in order to influence change at the kind of organisational pace we're talking, and that is as true for technology as anywhere else in the organisation. So the challenge for sustainability professionals, however, is that the world of technology is generally quite removed from their day-to-day. In engaging with tech leaders and tech solutions, sustainability leaders are being exposed to new ideas, new capabilities, new practices, new language and concepts. And for those of us who don't interact with technology and tech leaders on a regular basis, that can be quite a daunting space to engage. There's also often, particularly for larger organisations, clearly established processes around engagement of technology teams and leaders and capability and capacity. Processes around prioritisation and planning, which are often quarterly in length or duration. And technology teams and functions will have set up processes that allow them to best engage and enable other parts of the business so that the tech teams can pick up that work and deliver on them. If a sustainability leader in a team isn't well-versed and isn't confident in this space, it is really difficult to get the sustainability initiative on the right agenda at the right time in order for it to be considered and picked up by a technology team. As we've advocated, the approach where we see as a best fit forward is not to extend the technology capability in a sustainability team, but to rather empower a sustainability team to leverage the tech tools and leaders that already exist in their organisation. And a strong message here for the sustainability leader is not to expect to rely on the goodwill of the tech leader that they'll be engaging with along the way. Even the most ardent sustainability committed person who runs a technology team or function will require and expect that the sustainability team participate and engage in the technology systems and processes in the way that's set up so that that technology system can operate optimally. And so we ask that sustainability leaders determine what it means to be a good customer of their technology function, whatever that looks like for their organisation. How is it that the tech teams have set up work intake and delivery so that the sustainability team can really align and work most closely with a technology team in the way that suits that technology function.
Thank you. Very good advice for sustainability leaders. And, you've talked a little bit there about partnering with their tech counterparts. So, Andy, on the other side of the coin, we have the role of tech leaders increasingly becoming critical for the execution of sustainability goals. So what advice would you give tech leaders and their teams as they acquire new accountabilities for sustainability initiatives?
Yeah, I think sustainability presents a really exciting opportunity for tech leaders. So it's a new area that maybe they haven't thought a lot about before. But as we've spoken to previously, the role of technology in scaling sustainability initiatives is huge. The role of data in helping people make better decisions is also huge. And if we think about the complexity of any organization, whether it's in the supply chain or their manufacturing processes or the way they interact with customers, These are all opportunities to leverage technology to help make better choices around sustainability, optimize things, whether it's for cost or emissions or whatever the metric we're looking for. There's enormous opportunity there. However, some of the challenges we have when we talk to tech leaders about sustainability, their minds quickly go to what are the impacts or contributions does the tech function have to emissions within inside the organization? And I think their brains are trying to figure out where they can mitigate the use of cloud compute, for instance, as a source of emissions. And that is a good place to start, and that's a really relevant thing for them to think about. However, often when we look at the carbon inventory of organizations, the technology function itself and the emissions associated with that doesn't even get into the top 10. So the opportunity for technology leaders isn't actually in reducing their own contribution to emissions. It's actually to leverage technology to help other parts of the organization. And this is really exciting. And like I mentioned, around the supply chain, tracking and tracing and helping suppliers on their sustainability journey, whether that's interacting with customers, whether that's the internal operations of an organization. Technology is the common piece that cuts across all of those areas. How can technology leaders position themselves to be a key part in the future of an organization that is striving to be more sustainable? To me, I find that incredibly exciting, and I'm sure once other technology leaders understand what the opportunity looks like, they'll also start to lean into this a little bit more and start to put up their hands when there's sustainability initiatives being spoken about and start to consider it in their daily work.
Amazing, thank you. So what I've taken away from, what you've both just said, it's the collaboration between sustainability and technology is critical for successful execution. I know both of you work day to day on our clients in the business. And so I wonder, can you share an example of a company or a project that you've seen that effectively aligned sustainability and technology strategies and achieved some impactful sustainability outcomes? Kathleen, I might ask you first.
Yes, as you've mentioned, we are fortunate enough to see up close how many organisations are grappling with the opportunity around technology and sustainability and how the two might come together to achieve some really exciting things. A particular example from this year, from here in Australia, is some work that we undertook this year with an organisation called Xero. Xero is a fabulous organisation. Anyone in the market around digital software and accounting capabilities will be well familiar with them. Xero essentially provides an ecosystem of connected apps and connections for small businesses to undertake banking and financial elements of their operations. And from the start, Xero has had a strong customer focus and has very much been committed to promoting sustainability, both social and environmental outcomes, across the diversity of their operations. And being global, they really have an exciting opportunity to do that. They've had a strong track record in this area, well reflected in global rankings and other indices that have indicated they are a leader in their field. And internally, both from the board and leadership level, right down to sort of grassroots movements around sustainability, Xero has a lot to be proud of. The challenge that they were facing, and as we've talked about today, is a very similar challenge for organisations across the market, is an impasse around how to move forward and really make a significant impact on some of the sustainability challenges that they've set themselves. Over the last number of years, they have made great progress in a number of areas, but really have found themselves asking, how can we make a greater achievement and accelerate our sustainability strategy in new ways? And we were fortunate enough to partner with them to really explore how technology might enable the acceleration of their sustainability strategy. And we looked at three key areas. The first area we looked at was an examination of the Xero technology strategy alongside analysis of the Xero sustainability strategy. And we were looking for a few things. We were looking to see how the organisation's commitment and roadmap around technology would present, as Andy mentioned, opportunities to embed sustainability and sustainability outcomes. But we were also looking at the sustainability strategy and applying our tech thinking on that strategy to try to determine ways in which technology focus or a tech solution or a tech approach might meet that sustainability outcome. The second area we were looking at, we've talked about again today, is how to improve and help align the sustainability team and the technology function so that they can work together in an optimal way. Being a digital company, many parts of the Xero organisation would consider themselves technology or technologists. And so the opportunity to drive sustainability through that part of the business is huge for Xero. What the sustainability team came to us to help them work out is how can they best enable and leverage those relationships and existing technology focus to drive sustainability outcomes. And the third area, very much linked there to the second, is around how do we activate and enable tech leaders to play their part in this overall strategy. As Andy pointed out, the role of tech leaders is going to be critical for organisations like Xero. Absolutely harnessing the power and the thinking and the influence of those tech teams is critical to the overall sustainability performance. And so it was fantastic to work with that organisation to help them understand how to drive greater outcome through those elements of their sustainability approach.
That's great. Thank you. Andy, did you have anything you wanted to add to that from your experience with Xero?
Yeah, so like Kath mentioned, Xero is a digital native and data and technology is the core of what they do. And it's no different with how they approach sustainability. We worked with the team to understand their current state and the tools they have in place at the moment and how they're reporting externally on sustainability initiatives and also incentivizing people internally. And we worked with them to develop really a hybrid approach of using best-in-breed tools to address some of their sustainability concerns and initiatives, maybe around climate or risk or procurement and things like that. And how we can take those tools and also leverage their internal data platforms. So it's a hybrid approach of tooling, working well together to create a suite of ESG tooling in collaboration with existing data platforms. That approach will allow them to extract as much data and value as possible from those tools and integrate it with internal systems and internal organizational data to really drive that impact. There's no point locking up all of these insights with inside tools and with inside certain teams. How do we surface them to the right people to help them make the best decisions? One of the key areas of helping where we were helping Xero is around their climate action and carbon accounting tooling and helping them come up with a strategy to start to collect that in a more automated approach so that they can move from just data collection through to the analysis phase and hopefully start to predict what things might look like in the future to help them make those decisions a little bit better.
Terrific. Thank you. That was a great insight. I hope people get a sense for what's possible in their organisation from that example. Before we wrap up, lastly, let's talk about the role of technology partners in accelerating the execution of sustainability strategies. Why do organisations need to consider the role of technology partners to support their sustainability efforts? Kathleen?
It's true to say, I think, that many types of organisations and many thinking and many specialists are going to be needed in order for organisations to really meet their sustainability objectives. And this is really true of technology partners. As we've talked about already today, the execution gap that these organisations are facing is not just a challenge for the sustainability team, it's an organisational wide challenge. And meeting that challenge really does involve tech-enabled thinking and tech approaches. And the right technology partner can help an organisation understand where it is that an organisation should focus its tech efforts in order to achieve that sustainability outcome. But it will also help an organisation understand how to bridge this gap between sustainability teams and a technology team, between aspirations and action. And sustainability teams will really benefit from working with a partner who has deep tech expertise, understands how tech functions work, what motivates tech leaders. And similarly, a tech leader is really often in a position, as we've talked about today, really keen to pick up and embrace the opportunity around sustainability, but really does need guidance that's very contextual and specific to the tech leader's challenge and the tech function. And that's why a tech leader has such an important role to play for both parts of the business.
Yeah, for sure. So the role of the tech leader will be critical, like we've mentioned previously. Helping organizations move from strategy through to execution will be delivered via tech partners and working with the internal tech functions. And organizations have set lofty goals to be net zero by 2030 or whatever their sustainability initiatives and goals are. But to make meaningful impact in those areas, we need to develop tech systems that are supporting the organization in transitioning from where they are today to where they need to be tomorrow. And tech leaders and tech partners will play a key role in helping organizations through that transition. And this transition isn't just about technology, it's also organizational change required. So how do we structure our teams, people, and processes augmented by technology to really make a difference and start to move from the strategy piece where we're seeing people stuck at the moment, really into that execution and making meaningful progress.
Well, that wraps up our discussion today. Thank you, Kathleen and Andy, for the informative discussion on sustainability. And thank you to our listeners for joining us for this episode of Pragmatism in Practice. If you'd like to listen to similar podcasts, please visit us at thoughtworks.com/podcast. Or if you enjoyed the show, help spread the word by rating us on your preferred podcast platform.